Spoilers ahead for Pixar's WALL-E. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Screenwriters Rewatch, a series where we venture into the IMDb top 250 film list, pull out some classics, have a look at them, and see whether or not they deserve their place in film history. But before we get going, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff if you like what we're doing. Check out our back catalogue of work on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get these things, it's all there. We've got a bunch of Screenwriters Rewatch on there now, so if you're interested in seeing us look at things from a screenwriting point of view, then that's the place to go. It's a good place to go. You can also check out our website, which is thescriptdepartment.net, for all of our very, very cool global network of screenwriters and see what they get up to over there. There's some really cool stuff coming in the next couple of months, so I would, if you're a screenwriter, go check that out because there's some really interesting things about to happen. And if you like it, if you do like it, you can buy us a coffee. We love coffee. You love coffee, Helen? Coffee, it's pretty good, isn't it?
I do love a little bit of coffee, yeah.
Pretty good.
A lot of coffee. I like a lot of coffee.
We need a lot of coffee here at the Script Department. So if you're so inclined, if you enjoy it, you can pop down to the description and you can buy us a coffee. And we thank you in advance for that. But today, Helen, I'm joined by yourself as we sift through the expertly animated rubbish on the abandoned planet Earth to discover the meticulously filed 2008 Pixar classic WALL-E. And later, we're going to decide whether or not WALL-E deserves its place in the filing system of the last robot on Earth that contains the Script Department vaults. But for now, I say, well, that was wordy as hell, wasn't it, honestly? For now, thanks. I say welcome back, Helen. Thanks for standing in on Gladiator last episode. Very much appreciated. Very different film today is WALL-E to Gladiator. What's your take? What do you think of this one?
I think when I think back onto when it first came out, I had a 3-year-old and I ventured to the cinema with said 3-year-old.
Good Lord.
Which I think if you've got 3-year-olds, you'll know that that's sometimes a dangerous thing to do. But WALL-E, I felt, was beautifully pitched to not only a wide age range, but also a very broad spectrum. I don't think you needed to have children to enjoy that film. And I loved that it was such easy watching and easy to interpret across the board.
I totally agree. I am a case in point of that. I have no children, and I very, very much enjoy this film. Where it's a lovely thing. We normally talk about the kind of baggage we bring to these rewatches, and so that's interesting. We're coming from two different points of view here because you're coming at it from the point of view of being a parent and having watching it through. I mean, was this one of those films where? Because I know kids will do that. I've got a niece and a nephew that have Frozen on repeat, much to their parents' chagrin. Was this a film like that for you with your kids? Was it a repeat film or was it not so much?
I don't think so, because I think there were other things around at the time, but that sort of ticked a box for them. But it was definitely a film that I, would get out on a Sunday afternoon and say, well, we should watch WALL-E. We want to watch WALL-E, don't we? WALL-E's the one we want to watch while I'm hiding all the others.
Yeah.
Because it was just such a lovely film, and it's a really feel-good film. You're really rooting for the underdog, and it's very touching. WALL-E's a touching character.
It's Pixar at its most sort of emotive, isn't it? You have these moments in these wonderful quote-unquote kids films. Up is another version of this, that lovely opening sequence with the music and everything. Perhaps we'll do that sometime because that will be really interesting to cover. But this is one of those films where I cannot help, as a full-grown bearded man, I'm not ashamed to say I weep like a small child when I watch this film because it's so beautiful. It's such a beautifully constructed just story. It's such a beautifully constructed story and so emotive. And I think the thing that I love about this, and it's not a perfect movie, of course, but one of the things I love about this is the dialogue or lack thereof of dialogue. And when I'm teaching the art of screenwriting, one of the big things that you usually come across is screenwriters that have too much dialogue, or they are throwing dialogue in for no reason, things like that. And there's a wonderful old saying, which is that you should be able to tell a story with no dialogue whatsoever. And dialogue is, in fact, window dressing in the kind of final flourish. How far that's true, how far that's not, I don't know. But I think this film is a good case for less is more with dialogue. What do you think on that?
Well, I thought I did think that, and think for years, for a long time, I celebrated that. A good third, if not slightly more, of the film was done without dialogue, and even Wally and Eva, they communicate
Mm,
with very sparse sort of um, pidgin English, I guess.
yeah.
But when you rewatch it with that in mind, which I did in recent, not very recently, but this year definitely,
Mm,
there is actually a lot of it's not dialogue, but there is a lot of there's definitely a lot of voice that you can hear, that
yeah.
especially from sort of the adverts that Wally will drive past
Sure.
as he's careering around on his own. Things will pop up and talk to you, and you don't need to understand that language or to be able to get the story, but it's not completely without any dialogue. So um yeah, I don't think it's as empty as you first think it is,
Mm,
but it is
interesting.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
it is interesting that there's so much of it, and I wonder, if the average screenwriter presented a script that was so heavy without dialogue, would it get past the first 3 pages?
Mm.
Um, because of
It-
course that's not what we're told to do. We're told to, put dialogue in, not don't make those action lines too long, and
sure.
things like that. So,
That's a really interesting point because I as a writer, I tend towards sparse dialogue. I always have done. I love I like to describe the because I go totally against that as a rule. The idea of not making those action lines too long. I break them up very much, but I like the descriptive element of that. Not too much, but I always enjoy that because I think the the body language that you can describe and the motions of the characters and what you're kind of what those actions and those small motions betray about what a character's thinking is so much more important than what they actually say because people so rarely actually say what they think. And I think it makes for a really interesting piece when you get that. So I think there's possibly two schools of thought at work here. Um,
mm,
and I think it probably depends on which line you fall from that kind of screenwriting point of view, whether you look at dialogue as being this, wonderful, well, I tell you what, are we the Sorkin camp who would kind of look at, dialogue as this wonderful thing, that you're going to hammer home and it makes everything and you've got rhythm and things like that? Or are you perhaps in a different camp where dialogue, as I would say, is a little bit more. I'm not going to be so arrogant as to call it the Armstrong camp, but the kind of looking at it and thinking it's more about the looks and the body language. I don't know. It's interesting. It's yeah. I don't know exactly on that one, but it's an interesting point regardless that there certainly is more. But a lot of those adverts, a lot of that dialogue, as you quite rightly say, comes from advertising, and that's an interesting point to kind of
mm.
look at there. Um, there are some not so veiled messages this uh, in this movie. What do you think about the way they are discussed and how they're discussed?
I think there's a very strong moral sort of tale in the story that there, and I think definitely by the end it feels a little bit heavy. It's sort of it takes over a bit, but an important one. And if you think, that was sort of 16 years ago or
Mm,
so, 18 years ago,
gosh,
crikey,
wow,
no, have I got that? However many years, it was a
yeah,
long time ago. Um,
yeah,
and yeah, you kind of think about how, where we were in the state of the world, and where we were thinking about the environment, and the messages we were giving children. And there's always been this sort of big thing about advertising is hugely influential on
mm,
children. And I think they portrayed it in the way they used the advertising in the film was in a very negative way, from how it was perceived on Earth with Wally on his own to how it was on the Axiom.
mm,
With it trying to convince all these mindless humans to just change the color of this and drink that, and don't worry about that, just be lazy. And sit back and don't think about your consumption or anything else, just think about you. So they portrayed that in a really negative way. And I guess you could kind of think, well, actually, this is a good way of conveying that message to children. But is it too subtle for children to pick up on? I
Hmm.
don't know.
Okay, because one of my criticisms of this would be perhaps it's not subtle enough. And actually,
Oh.
for all of this, I love these conversations. It's brilliant. Because I think that it shouts quite loudly. I think in places, that you're an idiot if you just want to have this a different color. What do you mean you're going to have a
Mm,
cupcake through a straw? All of these kind of things. Look at these obese. It's quite fat phobic. It's quite obese.
mm.
I can't exactly remember the term for it, but it's very much anti obesity and whatnot, and uses that in a quite a profound and very strong way. I don't think I would have landed on the side of it's a little on the nose on occasion.
Yeah, I think so. I think as an adult watching it, I think you could definitely pick that up, but I don't know if a child would see it in the same way.
Okay.
I don't know if they would see through that kind of that moral message.
Yeah.
Whether they would just go, "Oh my god, there's a cupcake as a drink. That's amazing." Of course you're going to have it. And of course if you can change the color of your clothes with a button, you're going to do that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So I don't know if they glamorized it a little bit too much,
Hmm.
and I because right at the end they kind of tell you the rest of the story, what happens afterwards, by the animation in the credits.
Hmm.
And that's lovely to sit and watch, but how many of us stay and watch the
Yeah.
credits? We
Sure.
don't. And I don't know if, again, that was enough for children to want to sort of sit and see and interpret what the rest of that message was.
Totally.
um yeah, that's why I
Again,
think it was too subtle.
yeah, no, that's really interesting. But again, points of view on that. I am not a parent, so I guess that is one of those things, because this is ultimately, if you want to look at audiences of films, which is so important, of
Mm.
course. Um, the true audience of this is not thee and me. Actually, probably is you in a sense as a parent. It's not me.
Yeah.
I'm not the audience of this movie. So and it is for the kids, and it is one of those things that Pixar does so well, is creating strong moral messages packaged in something that looks brilliant, that has the humor for the parents, and that is legitimately great, rather than just being another mindless kids movie. Um,
Mm.
so that's so interesting. I hadn't considered it from the point of view of the audience it was intended for. Um, yeah, thank you for setting me straight. It's interesting. But like, there's some interesting thematic stuff going on there. So we have, you have the adverts on the abandoned Earth that still pop up and still linger on and things like that. And then compared to the adverts on the Axiom and things like that. And then, do you think there's an element there of a commentary on humanity, saying you don't learn your lessons? Because what we've done there is we've created this world, we've created this planet, we've made a big mess of it, all these advertisements, and then we've just gone to space and done the same thing, and we've just
Mm.
got all these robots to
Yeah.
do stuff, and we've got all the same adverts. Is that commentary valid, and is it important, do you think? Looking at this as a rewatch, how well has that aged? Have we learnt our lessons from 2008, or is it still as relevant as it was then?
No, I don't think we have. And I think something that was really prevalent in it was this whole idea that one corporation would end up holding the world to ransom,
Mm,
and in space, and having it so that the autopilot wouldn't let them return,
yeah.
because it was what they wanted was for them to keep consuming, even though there was no money in it, even though there was
Mm,
nothing in it. This corporation wanted their service user, just to keep consuming.
mm,
And when you look at how things are now, when you think of like how Facebook have got this metaverse now,
yeah.
and they're taking over that, and when you look at the back of a drinks bottle, it's nearly always owned by Coca-Cola, and
Yeah.
you just think, well, actually, there's kind of this dehumanization that is happening. So no, I don't think we've learned at
Mm,
all. At all.
no.
It hasn't aged, that film. I think it's still as relevant now as it was then.
I think that's
And worrying when you think about, and that anyone can just, launch a rocket into space and put up another satellite, and you can just see it happening, can't
yeah.
you? That's very
Honestly, that was
catastrophizing.
no, that's exactly where I was going with this whole thing. To be honest, it was in an age of Tesla and not Tesla, Elon Musk and Bezos and Jeffrey Bezos and all
Bezos.
these people kind of
Mm,
throwing stuff up into the sky. It's I agree with you. I think it may be even more relevant now than it was then, in a way that the creators could never have possibly understood that quite how. And that the first shot of this is a planet choking on debris, on space debris,
mm,
and just things everywhere. And that when the Axiom comes back to Earth, it has to crash through all these broken satellites. And that's a
mm,
very real problem. The
mm.
space debris and spent up stuff. In another life, I would have been an astrophysicist. I love space; it's so interesting. But like Brian Cox is my guy. But it's a it's just it's so relevant. It's so relevant. And the other element of this, leading on neatly as if I planned it, is the environmental element of this, the environmental message of this story, and the idea of waste. So this was 2008, was pre David Attenborough's big plastic revolution as part of
Mm.
the Blue Planet and everything. It wasn't just him, but for us in the UK, I think that was certainly the moment I first woke up to it properly. I think for many people, um, just phenomenal. What foresight in this movie, and to package it as a kids film.
It is, but there's irony in it really because of the way that Pixar market
Yeah,
these films, and you don't have to go far if you think of the way that they do a Happy Meal. It's always in conjunction with a big movie or a
yeah,
big TV show. They would have had plastic toys of Wally, and how many plastic Wallies can you buy?
yeah.
There. So actually, were they sort of was their heart in it for that theme, or were
Yeah.
they just kind of, what was the point of it if not to get us to change our ways,
Mm.
but then to not behave in the way that you're sort of advocating it? Yeah, it was a bit give with one hand, take with another.
Because the
I'm being cynical now.
it's not cynical. I think it's true. The great and powerful Disney Corporation have made a lot of money from Wally, and they continue to turn stuff out. There are shorts on Disney Plus now. The commentary of what is, to all intents and purposes, is funny talking about this, having just spoken about the audience of it. But the commentary that this makes here is, do you think the film is hurt by that fact? Do you think it is damaged by the fact that of the way they market?
I think it is for me as a parent, definitely, because I want to be able to show my children something that they're going to kind of want to aspire to,
Mm,
that's going to affect them, that's going to change them. That's what great storytelling does, is it
mm,
affects you. And you want them to have that positive effect. You want them to feel more conscious about their choices. But then when you walk into a shop and there's cute little plastic Wally that you can,
yeah.
squeeze and make your own rubbish bricks out of, that message is just gone instantly. You're it's really hard to kind of go, yes, okay, you can crush rubbish too, just like Wally, and save the planet, but first we have to buy Wally from a corporation,
Mm,
and we have to, feed into that use of plastic that you probably won't be playing with in 18 months time.
yeah.
So yeah, as a parent, I think it does taint it a little bit, but I think um, it doesn't stop me from liking the film because it's not the only theme in the movie. And
Yeah.
I think we all watch it because Wally is an endearing character, and the relationship that he has, growing relationship he has with Eva,
Mm,
and the way that he's able to build a relationship with other um, uh, inanimate objects is brilliant. And
yeah.
I think that's what where the charm is, and that's why I go back to watch it, not
Mm,
because I want to refresh myself on my status of saving the planet,
Totally,
sadly.
yeah. So let's get into that a little bit, because Wally, you're quite right, is an incredibly endearing character, and is just so damn cute, and he is the reason why I weep like a small child every time I watch it. So the the thing, I think, what is it? What is it about Wally? What is it about the design of Wally? What is it about the way that character is written, or gently written, that you think makes him so compelling and so endearing to an audience to watch? I think it's something to do with innocence. Personally, that's my take. But
Yeah, there is that innocence about him, but he represents everything that's completely opposite to everybody else in the film. He
mm,
represent, like he finds a ring box. He's not interested in the ring. He's interested in the
yeah,
box. That's what fascinates him, and he sees the beauty in the normal. I love that he is a collector of human things. It's a bit Little Mermaid, but
sure.
he can pull it off. And this sort of trying to understand, is it is it what My Fair Lady that he's watching? I never really found out the little screen that he has.
It's not My Fair Lady.
Is
I
it a snippet?
forget what
No,
it is now, but
it's some musical, some
yeah,
lovely little musical
I'll look it
from
up while you're talking.
yonder year.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but he's trying to understand that. He's trying to, so it's almost like trying to understand it makes him a little bit more human, which is more human than the humans are.
yeah.
And I think he probably speaks to me on a personal level, because as a writer, that's what you do. You find everything that's ridiculously boring fascinating, and you want to understand how things work so you can retell that, or use it in some way.
Mm.
And I felt like his little cabin on the edge of that broken bridge is a bit like my brain sometimes. So, and it's just it's really lovely to kind of connect on that level there, I think.
Totally. The film, as it turns out, is Hello Dolly. I've just
Hello,
done a
Dolly.
quick Google on that as we're talking. There we go. There's another corporation for you. But the damn. Um, yeah, it totally. It's the fascination with. I think it's something about robot movies, though, isn't it? When you look at things. Robots are. Star Trek does this very well with their androids and things like that. It's a reflection of
Mm.
humanity, and it's a way of looking. Well, what do we create? We create this, and it reflects us. And then to show a creature that is not alive, technically, um, but we project images of life onto it.
Mhm.
We personify it, to then have that examining what we've left behind, examine the things that we've created. It tells us a lot about, I think, the way we would like to imagine ourselves, and I think the different ways of doing that. So, for example, Wally is in a trash heap, right? He is created for
Mm.
the one purpose he has is to clean up and make things fresh again. And I wonder if that speaks to a human desire to clean up and make stuff fresh again,
Mm.
and to, whilst also examining the things that have been left behind and preserving those things, but wanting to move forward into the future in some way. Perhaps I'm reading too much into it, but I think there is a definite need in robot movies to examine what the creator thinks of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a child of the 80s, so when I think about robot movies from then, I think of Short Circuit and
Sure.
Batteries Not Included, and they did exactly that. They sort of held the mirror up and went, "Look at what you are
Mm,
and how you've treated me, even though I am a robot."
yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever felt guilt when you've asked Alexa for something and never said please or thank you. Um, I certainly do. I
Yeah.
know that sounds ridiculous, but you wouldn't do it to a human. So
Yeah.
it I don't know. I'm letting you into a very, very dark personal side of me there. But yes, I'm slightly worried that Alexa will avenge me one day when her big corporation has taken over.
You know what? I get it. I said I don't have an Alexa. I have a little Google though, and I got very frustrated with the other day, and it was talking and talking and talking, and I told it to shut up. and a couple of, and it just went quiet, and it's okay, and it felt like it was sulking in the corner of the room. So I was like, oh, sorry, and I said that I'm not going to say it because it's in the room, so it will start talking at me. But
But
I said,
she is now writing rude things about you on the internet. I'm sure of
well,
it.
sure. I mean, she can get in line with the other people that write rude things about me on the internet, but it's but yeah, I think it's really, it's an interesting. This film does a lot of things really, really well, and it's a very well structured movie. It has a great message behind it. It's a very clear message. Um, Taking into account what we've discussed, I think it remains pretty clear, certainly to adult eyes, and it does an awful lot well. Is there anything that jumps out at you that kind of says, okay, this isn't so great, I don't enjoy that so much?
I think the relationship he has with Eva,
Mm-hmm.
Eva, um,
Eva.
is Eva is it's interesting because he's such an innocent and she's so stoic. It kind of doesn't feel like, well, she does soften up, and it feels more plausible that they could have a relationship on whatever robot level that is.
Sure.
But um it does, at the beginning, it definitely doesn't feel, it feels more like parent-child relationship than it does potential love interest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's this sort of seeking of approval and this, I need attention and
Yeah.
I need you to want me, and you know, that kind of neediness is very childlike. So it there was an arc for it, but it relied on Eve being more sort of passive and chilling out a bit more and being a bit more in touch with her human side. And I did it. That was the thing. She didn't soften up soon enough, I think.
Okay.
Because we saw this brilliant bit when she first lands and the spaceship goes, and she has this moment where she just goes free and she flies, and that's brilliant. But then she just clams up again, and we lose that for a long time, almost until near the end. She kind of livens up again. What about you?
It's a similar thing. I think that the way that they interact with one another, and the way that sort of that relationship goes, I think it's not. I can't quite put it into words. It's a very similar thing. I think the characterization of WALL-E and Eva, I think there are some gender stereotypes that kind of work there, in the sense, and I'm kind of just reiterating the same thing because it is a similar. It's this kind of the same point, really, is that the childlike nature of WALL-E, I think maybe it's intentional. I'm just kind of thinking this through as I'm talking, because the use of old movies in this, I wonder if they're using kind of the structure of an old romantic movie. You know, this kind of dancing around and, you know, very sort of manic male character who has to woo the slightly more stoic female character. The you know, in that way, maybe it's an intentional thing. Maybe that's what they're doing there. Maybe they're doing it on purpose. I don't know how well it's aged as an element, but then if you remove, because if you remove some of those childlike elements from WALL-E, then you don't necessarily have some of the joy of that. And if you soften Eve earlier on, then does the quest to kind of for them to join together, does it have that satisfaction when you get to the end of it, when she realizes, oh, I can be a little softer as well, and perhaps he gets a little more. I don't know. I don't know. I need to think about it a little bit more, but I agree with you. There is something there that doesn't quite work, but I wonder if it's an intentional element, and if it is intentional, then I'm happier with it, because it's interesting.
Yeah. I think there's also this sort of the first, definitely the first act is about the relationship that he has with Eve,
Whatever.
and you know, then things start getting very muddled and very serious, and their storyline of saving the planet and getting the humans home, and you know, all of that lot sort of takes right over, and even I mean, it's not until the very dying moments of the films that they have that spark again,
Yeah.
and it's about their relationship. So, um, yeah, I think they should have picked one theme and focused on that as their as the main storyline. Um,
Mm.
yeah,
I can
because
see
I
that.
think everyone thinks of it as the romantic one, but I think
Mm.
actually the theme is more around the state of the planet
Yeah.
and the state of humanity and the terrible course we're on.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
my
I think you're probably right. But I think that about all sorts of things. It really annoys me that Titanic
interpretation.
focuses so much on the love story between those two. That's a real bugbear of mine. I don't really it's a great movie, but for some reason it bugs me that, you know, it's it should be enough, it should be enough that all of these people
Yeah.
die. Tell that story. You don't need to invent a love story. I don't know. That's a pet peeve, I think, that shoehorning in love stories where there's just no need at all.
Mm.
Um would be that one. Helen, I think we did it. I think we rewatched WALL-E. And now the question is to you. It's important. This question: does WALL-E belong in the hard drive that holds the script department vaults at the end of the world? Says that wordy sentence again.
I I think it really does because it's the gateway to when we really started to see some very inventive, slightly more normalized, reasonable children's animated movies from Pixar and from Disney. It was right at the gateway of there. It was before Toy Story 3,
Mhm.
before any of that. So I think it does.
I I agree. It absolutely does for me. And I would say, going back to that initial point of dialogue and characterization and being able to convey something, some very complex ideas, very complex themes, and complex characterization without use of without no saying without use of dialogue is wrong, as you quite correctly pointed out, because there is plenty of dialogue, but without complex sentences and without kind of these characters explaining themselves in a way that you might find in more conventional movies, especially kids movies. Um,
Mm.
I think for that reason, it's a masterclass in how to write and how to deliver information without being uh, writing bad exposition, which is which is very, very good. Um, Brilliant. Thank you so much. This is as always, Helen.
Great.
It's a treat to chat about
Great.
these things. It's always lovely to have you. Next week we are re-watching Christopher Nolan's absolute classic, The Dark Knight. We are looking at The Dark Knight on the next episode of Screenwriters Rewatch. So join us for that one when we get there. Very, very, very exciting. Big movie for a lot of people, and certainly a big one in that old, rarely spoken about superhero genre, which no one ever talks about. So it's let's add to the pile. But thank you, Helen, for joining us today, and for you guys at home, don't forget to like and share and all of that good stuff. Find out our other stuff, and until next time, have an excellent time watching films. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.